Wolves attack a helpless bobcat cub. Then something truly incredible happened. The frozen wilderness of Montana's Flathead National Forest stretched vast and merciless under a steel-gray sky. Winter's icy grip clamping down as snowdrifts swallowed the pines in a shroud of white. Milo, a 4-month-old bobcat cub, stumbled through the deep powder, his spotted coat stark against the endless frost, his tiny paws sinking with each faltering step. Hunger gnawed his frail frame. Too young to hunt, his mother's warmth a ghost lost to the wild's cruel jaws. His blue eyes darted wild, a desperate hiss breaking the silence, until amber glints pierced the dusk, a wolf pack closing in, their scarred alpha, Luna, leading with a hunter's gleam. Could a cub's cry pierce the frozen dark? The wind howled, a relentless blade slicing through the trees as Milo's legs quaked, his spotted fur matted with snow, his ribs stark beneath a coat too thin to shield the cold. He'd roamed alone for days, his mother's tracks buried by storms, her fate a mystery in the forest maw. A twig snapped, his ears flicked, a hiss ripping free as Luna's pack fanned out. Their growls a low rumble, paws crunching the frost with predatory grace. Her amber eyes locked on him, scarred snout twitching, hunger glinting, a death sentence stalking closer with every breath. Milo's hiss sharpened, small, fierce, a cub's defiance against the wild's teeth. But his paws slipped, his strength a fading ember as the wolves circled, their amber stares a ring of fire in the snow. Luna lunged, a blur of muscle and fang, but fate roared louder, a sharp crack splitting the air, a wolf deterrence blast echoing through the pines. The pack scattered, yelps piercing the dusk as snow sprayed. Luna's growl fading into shadow, her amber eyes glinting one last time before the forest swallowed her. David Lawson stood at the ridge's edge, his weathered frame braced against the wind, his rugged hands gripping the deterrent gun, smoke curling from its barrel, his breath fogging in the chill. At 58, his silver hair peaked from a wool cap, his hazel eyes sharp with decades of Montana's wild etched into their depths, a seasoned wildlife biologist who tracked wolves and bears through blizzards and dusk. He'd heard the hiss, a faint, desperate cry cutting through his survey, and broke protocol, his boots pounding the snow to find its source. "Hang on, little one," he rasped, voice rough with urgency. Could a cub's fight stir a man's heart? Milo slumped, his spotted coat trembling as David knelt, his thick jacket rustling, his hands steady despite the cold, lifting the frail cub with a gentleness honed by years. "You're a fighter," he murmured, his hazel eyes glinting as he wrapped Milo tight. The cub's faint chirp a spark against his chest. A life too young to fade, a defiance too fierce to break. The wolves' howls faded, Luna's pack retreating, their amber eyes lost to the pines. But David's pulse raced, his rugged hands cradling a trust born in frost. The truck rumbled to life, its heater blasting as David drove, Milo nestled in his jacket, the cub's tiny paws twitching against the warmth. A lifeline threading through the frozen dark. "You're safe now," he said, his voice a gravelly thread, glancing at the spotted bundle, his heart thudding, a breach of protocol he couldn't regret. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center loomed, a sturdy outpost against the wild, run by his daughter Elena, a 28-year-old vet whose steady hands had mended countless lives. Elena met him at the door, her dark hair tied back, her hazel eyes mirroring his, glinting with a fire forged by science and grit. "Dad, what's this?" she asked, voice sharp as she took Milo, her hands probing his frail warmth. Ribs stark, coat dull, a cub teetering on the edge. "Found him. Wolves closing in," David rasped, his rugged hands steady as he shed his jacket. "Couldn't leave him." Elena's gaze softened, her steady hands cradling the cub, a spark of awe breaking her focus. "He's a fighter, malnourished, cold, but alive. Milo, let's call him Milo." The center hummed, lights buzzing, heaters whirring, as Elena worked, her hands deft with fluids and warmth, David's field wisdom guiding her touch. "He's too young, 4 months maybe," he said, voice thick as he watched, his rugged hands steady, a trust tethered to a cub's faint chirp. "He's got grit," Elena murmured, her hazel eyes glinting, her hands stitching life back into Milo, a bond blooming in the center's glow. A whisper of hope piercing the wild's icy grip. The forest stretched silent, Luna's pack fading into shadow, Milo's hiss a memory in the snow. But his fight roared on, a spark carried from frost to fire, a tale just beginning to unfold. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center hummed with quiet purpose under the stark Montana sky, its sturdy walls a bastion against the frozen grip of Flathead National Forest winter. Milo lay cradled in a heated crate, his spotted bobcat coat a faint shimmer beneath the clinic's soft glow, his tiny chest rising with fragile breaths, blue eyes clouded, paws twitching as warmth seeped into his starved frame. Elena Lawson knelt beside him, her steady hands adjusting a drip, her dark hair tied tight as she probed his frail warmth with a vet's precision. "Hang in there, Milo," she murmured, voice soft but firm, a lifeline threading through the wild's cold echo. Could a cub's spark kindle beneath such care? David Lawson stood close, his rugged frame silhouetted against the window, his silver hair glinting under the fluorescent hum as he watched. His hazel eyes sharp with decades of forest wisdom, hands steady despite the ache of a night's trek. "He's a fighter. Took on wolves," he rasped, voice thick with a pride born in frost, his thick jacket shed beside the crate, a shield traded for a cub's trust. Elena's gaze flicked up, her steady hands pausing mid-note. 4 months, too young to hunt. Malnutrition's deep. Cold's worse. He's a miracle to be alive. The crate glowed, a cocoon of heat and hope, as Elena's hands moved deft, fluids dripping slow, a thermometer beeping faint life into Milo's frame. "He's dehydrated, starved bad," she said, her voice edged with urgency as she adjusted a blanket, his spotted fur trembling less with each pulse. David's rugged hands hovered, his voice a gravelly thread. "Lost his mother, tracks gone in the snow. Luna's pack would have had him, scarred alpha, hungry eyes." Elena's hazel eyes glinted, a spark of awe breaking her focus. "He's got grit, let's keep it burning." The center stretched, a sanctuary stitched from steel and care, its hum a steady rhythm as David paced, his boots scuffing tile, his mind tracing the forest's edge where Milo's hiss had pierced the dark. "Broke protocol, couldn't leave him," he said, voice rough as he sank beside the crate, his rugged hands brushing Milo's fur, a trust tethered to a cub's faint chirp. Elena's steady gaze met his, her hands cradling a syringe, nutrients threading life back into Milo. "You did right. Nature's cruel, but we're not. He's ours now." Days blurred, Milo's crate a battlefield of survival, Elena's hands a bridge between science and hope, David's field wisdom guiding each step. "He needs meat, soft, mashed," he said one dusk, his rugged hands steady as he ground scraps, his voice thick. "Wolves took his chance. Give it back." Elena nodded, her steady hands feeding Milo, his tongue flicking weak but sure, a faint squeak breaking the silence. "He's taking it." "Good sign," she murmured, her hazel eyes glinting, her hands stitching resilience into his frail frame, a bond blooming in the center's glow. The clinic thrummed, heaters whirring, monitors beeping, as Milo's strength flickered, his blue eyes clearing with each dawn, his spotted coat softening beneath their care. "He's gaining, ounce by ounce," Elena said one morning, her voice lifting as she weighed him, tiny paws steadying, a spark of life glowing brighter. David's grin cracked, his rugged hands brushing Milo's head, his trust a steady hum beneath their touch. "Good boy, tough as the wild," he rasped, his hazel eyes glinting. A spark carried from frost to fire, now a flame they'd fan. Weeks stretched, winter's grip tightening, Milo's recovery a quiet triumph as Elena's hands moved deft. Meat swapped for milk, her steady gaze charting his growth. "He's 4 pounds. Ribs filling," she said one dusk, her voice thick as Milo pawed the crate, his squeaks bold with life. David's rugged hands steadied a bowl, his voice a gravelly thread. "He's a hunter. Give him time." Stella's amber eyes, wild with a mother's plea, faded from his mind, replaced by Milo's. A trust tethered to their care, a bond stitched in the clinic's hum. The center glowed, a haven against the wild's maw. Milo's strength, a testament to their fight. His blue eyes turning yellow, a predator's spark glinting beneath his spotted coat. He's ready soon. Spring release, Elena said one night, her steady hands scribbling notes, her hazel eyes glinting with pride, her voice firm. He'll hunt. Survive. David nodded, his rugged hands steady as he watched, his trust a quiet fire burning for a cub he'd carried from Frost. He's ours. Then the wilds, he rasped, a bond tethered to a hiss, now a whisper of hope in the center's glow. The forest stretched silent, Luna's pack a shadow in the pines, Milo's cry a memory buried in snow. But as fight roared on, a spark kindled in a clinic's care, a tale of resilience stretching toward spring. The soft hum of Montana's Flathead National Forest stirred beneath a thawing sky, winter's icy grip loosening as spring's first breath whispered through the pines, melting snowdrifts into glistening streams. Inside the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, Milo prowled his enclosure, his spotted coat now thick and vibrant, a stark contrast to the frail cub he'd been, his yellow eyes glinting with a predator's spark. At 6 months, his paws gripped the earth with steady strength, his chirps deepening to growls as he pounced a log. Hunger a memory, resilience a flame kindled by care. Could a cub's spark, nursed in shelter, blaze back into the wild? Elena Lawson stood by the enclosure's gate, her steady hands clutching a clipboard, her dark hair catching the morning light as she watched, her hazel eyes shimmering with pride, her voice soft but firm. He's thriving. 6 pounds, hunting instincts sharp, she said, scribbling notes as Milo's claws raked the wood. David Lawson leaned beside her, his rugged frame braced against the fence, his silver hair glinting under his cap, his hands steady, hazel eyes tracing the cub's every move. He's ready. Spring's here, he rasped, voice thick with a quiet awe. A trust tethered to a hiss, now a bond stretching toward freedom. The center buzzed, volunteers darting, heaters fading as warmth seeped from the earth. Milo's crate a memory, his enclosure a proving ground stitched from wire and wood. He's stalking. Look, Elena said one dawn, her steady hands pointing as Milo crouched, his yellow eyes locked on a toy mouse, muscles coiling, a pounce tearing it free with a growl. David's grin cracked, his rugged hands brushing the fence, his voice a gravelly thread. That's it, boy. Wild's in you. A spark carried from Frost, now a flame they'd honed, a bond glowing in the center's hum. Weeks unfolded, Milo's strength blooming, his spotted coat a tapestry of life as Elena's hands moved deft, meat scraps swapped for live prey, her steady gaze charting his hunt. He's taking rabbits. Clean kills, she said one dusk, her voice lifting as she watched him tear through fur, his claws sharp, his growls bold. David's rugged hands steadied a log, his voice thick. He's learning. Wolves won't touch him now. Luna's amber eyes, scarred and hungry, faded from his mind, replaced by Milo's, a trust tethered to their care, a predator stitched from a cub's frail cry. The enclosure stretched, a wild microcosm, Milo's play a dance of instinct as he scaled branches, his yellow eyes glinting with a spark that echoed the forest beyond. He's 6 months. Release site set, Elena said one morning, her steady hands flipping a map, her hazel eyes glinting with resolve, her voice firm. Rocky Ridge, praise thick, cover's good. David nodded, his rugged hands tracing the lines, his trust a quiet fire burning for a cub he'd carried from snow. He's ours, then the wilds, he rasped, a bond tethered to a hiss, now a whisper of freedom in the center's glow. Spring deepened, the forest shedding frost, the center a hub of purpose as volunteers buzzed. Milo's enclosure a proving ground, his strength a testament to their fight. He's ready, David said one dusk, his rugged hands steady as he watched Milo leap, a spotted blur tearing through straw, his growl a low rumble. Elena's steady gaze met his, her hands clutching a camera, her voice thick. He's wild, let's give him back. A spark carried from frost, now a flame they'd set free, a bond stitched in the center's hum. The release day broke crisp, the ridge a rocky throne against the pines. Milo's crate a quiet sentinel as David drove, his rugged hands gripping the wheel, Elena beside him, her steady hands cradling a tracker. "He'll thrive. Praise here," she said, her hazel eyes glinting as they parked, her voice firm with pride. David's boots hit the earth, his rugged hands lifting the crate, his trust a steady hum as he set it down, Milo's yellow eyes glinting through the bars. A cub turned hunter, a bond tethered to their care. The gate swung open, Milo stepping free, his spotted coat shimmering in the sun, his claws gripping rock with a predator's grace. "Go, boy," David rasped, voice thick as Milo prowled, his yellow eyes sweeping the ridge, a growl breaking free. Elena's steady hand snapped a photo, her hazel eyes shimmering as Milo paused, glancing back, his amber gaze locking on theirs, a flicker of trust glinting bright. "Good boy," she murmured, tears prickling, a bond tethered to a hiss, now a whisper of the wild. Milo turned, his spotted frame bounding into shadow, a blur of fur and strength vanishing into the pines. A cub carried from frost, now a hunter set free. David's rugged hands steadied on his cane, his hazel eyes glinting with pride, his voice a gravelly thread. "He's home." Elena nodded, her steady hands clutching the photo, a trust stitched in care, a spark that burned beyond the center's walls. The forest stretched vast, Luna's pack a distant howl, Milo's hiss a memory in the snow. But his fight roared on, a flame kindled in shelter, now a whisper of the wild stretching toward legacy. The rugged expanse of Montana's Flathead National Forest stretched beneath a vibrant spring sky, the thaw painting the pines in hues of green as streams carved paths through melting snow. Milo roamed free, his spotted bobcat coat a fleeting shadow among the rocks, his yellow eyes glinting with a predator's spark, his claws gripping the earth with a strength forged from frost and care. Months had passed since the ridge's gate swung open. His frail cub, days of memory, his 6-month frame now lean and fierce, a hunter stalking the wild's heart. Could a spark set free blaze into a legacy? David Lawson stood at the forest's edge, his rugged frame braced against a pine, his silver hair catching the sun as he adjusted a trail camera, its lens a quiet eye tracing Milo's path. At 58, his hazel eyes shimmered with a pride honed by decades, his thick jacket rustling, his voice a gravelly thread as he murmured, "Where are you, boy?" The ridge loomed distant, a rocky throne where he'd released Milo, a trust tethered to a hiss now a whisper in the wild. His rugged hands steadied the device, a spark carried from frost, now a flame he tracked through time. Elena Lawson knelt beside a stream, her steady hands clutching a clipboard, her dark hair tied tight as she scribbled notes, her hazel eyes glinting with a vet's precision, her voice soft but firm. "Tracks here? Bobcat, fresh," she said, tracing claw marks in the mud, her steady gaze sweeping the forest pulse. "He's hunting. Rabbits, maybe voles." David's grin cracked, his rugged hands brushing the earth, his voice thick. "That's him. Milo's out there, thriving." A bond stitched in care, now a hunter's mark in the wild's glow. The center buzzed, a hub of purpose as spring bloomed, volunteers darting with crates and charts, Milo's release a spark that lit their work. "He's 6 months out. Cameras caught him," Elena said one dusk, her steady hands flipping footage, her hazel eyes glinting as a spotted blur darted through pines, yellow eyes piercing the dark. David's rugged hands steadied a mug, his trust a quiet fire burning for a cub he'd carried from snow. "Good boy, wild's his now," he rasped, a flame kindled in shelter, now a whisper in the forest hum. Months stretched, summer's heat yielding to fall's crisp bite, Milo's tracks a trail through the wild, his spotted coat a hunter's cloak as he stalked prey, his growls a low echo in the pines. "He's thriving, elk rebounding, wolves shifting," David said one morning, his rugged hands tracing a map, his hazel eyes glinting with pride, his voice thick. "Balance, see it? Elena nodded, her steady hands clutching records, her voice firm. He's part of it. Proof we can mend what breaks. A trust tethered to a hiss, now a bond woven into the wild's pulse. The center grew. Elena's meticulous notes on Milo's recovery, a blueprint etched in ink. Her steady hands crafting a model for orphan predators. Bridging ranchers wary of claws and conservationists seeking harmony. He's a case study. Survival rates up, she said one dusk, her hazel eyes glinting as volunteers buzzed, her voice lifting with pride. David's rugged hands steadied a crate, his trust a steady hum as he watched. He's ours, then theirs, he rasped. A spark carried from frost, now a flame lighting the center's glow. Years unfolded, fall fading to winter's chill, Milo's tracks a steady mark in the snow. His spotted coat now broad and fierce, his yellow eyes a predator's gleam at 2 years old. David roamed the ridge, his rugged frame slowing, his silver hair whitening as he set cameras, his hazel eyes glinting with a quiet hope. He's out there, hunting, living, he murmured, voice thick as he traced a claw print. His trust tethered to a cub's hiss, now a hunter's roar in the wild's heart. Spring returned, the forest blooming, the center a beacon as Elena's steady hands flipped footage, her hazel eyes widening at a den's edge. 2 cubs tumbling in the dusk, a spotted male, Milo watching close. He's a father, she said, voice thick as she clutched the screen, her steady gaze shimmering with pride. David's grin cracked, his rugged hands trembling as he sank beside her, his voice a gravelly thread. Good boy, carried it on. A spark kindled in care, now a flame woven into the wild's legacy. The center stretched, a hub of hope as Elena's record spread, her steady hands crafting talks, bridging ranchers and green, her voice firm with pride. Milo's proof, rehab works, she said one dusk, her hazel eyes glinting as locals buzzed. Her trust tethered to a cub's spark, now a model lighting the wild's glow. David's rugged hands steadied a photo, his trust a quiet fire burning for a cub he'd carried from frost. He's theirs, always was, he rasped, a bond stitched in care, now a whisper of balance in the forest hum. The forest stretched vast, Luna's pack a distant howl, Milo's hiss a memory in the snow, but his fight roared on, a flame kindled in shelter, now a legacy etched in the wild's heart. The golden hues of a Montana autumn draped Flathead National Forest, the crisp air weaving through the pines as leaves drifted like embers across the thawing earth. Milo prowled the rocky ridges, his spotted bobcat coat now broad and weathered, his yellow eyes glinting with a seasoned predator's spark at 4 years old. His paws gripped the stone with quiet strength, his growl a low echo as he watched his 2 cubs tumble near a den. Spotted shadows born from a spark once cradled in frost. Could a cub's legacy ripple through the wild, stitching balance into its heart? David Lawson stood by a stream, his rugged frame stooped beneath a wool cap, his silver hair catching the sun as he traced tracks in the mud. Wolf and bobcat side by side, a dance of coexistence etched in the thaw. At 62, his hazel eyes dimmed with age, his thick jacket rustling as he adjusted a trail camera. His voice a gravelly thread, thick with pride. You're out there, Milo, he murmured, his rugged hands steady despite the ache. A trust tethered to a hiss, now a whisper woven into the forest's pulse. Elena Lawson knelt beside him, her steady hands clutching a clipboard, her dark hair streaked with gray as she scribbled notes, her hazel eyes glinting with a vet's precision, her voice soft but firm. Wolf tracks, no blood, just passing. Milo's holding his own, she said, tracing claw marks, her steady gaze sweeping the stream's flow. David's grin cracked, his rugged hands brushing the earth, his voice thick. Balance, see it? He's part of it. A spark carried from frost, now a flame lighting the wild's glow. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center thrummed, a beacon of purpose as autumn deepened, volunteers darting with crates and charts. Milo's legacy a spark that fueled their work. He's thriving. Cubs prove it, Elena said one dusk, her steady hands flipping footage, her hazel eyes shimmering as Milo's spotted form darted through pines, his yellow eyes piercing the dark. David's rugged hands steadied a mug, his trust a quiet fire burning for a cub he'd carried from snow. "Good boy, wild's his now," he rasped, a flame kindled in care, now a whisper in the forest's hum. Years stretched, autumn fading to winter's chill. Milo's tracks a steady mark in the snow. His spotted coat a hunter's cloak as he guarded his territory, his growls a low echo in the pines. "He's a father, elk steady, wolves adapting," David said one morning, his rugged hands tracing a map, his hazel eyes glinting with pride, his voice thick. "Coexistence. See it?" Elena nodded, her steady hands clutching records, her voice firm. "He's proof. Rehab stitches the wild back." A trust tethered to a hiss, now a bond woven into the ecosystem's pulse. The center swelled, Elena's meticulous records of Milo's journey, a model etched in ink, her steady hands crafting talks that bridged ranchers wary of claws and conservationists seeking harmony. "He's a bridge. Survival rates up. Ranchers listening," she said one dusk, her hazel eyes glinting as locals buzzed, her voice lifting with pride. David's rugged hands steadied a photo, his trust a steady hum as he watched. "He's theirs. Always was," he rasped, a spark carried from frost, now a flame lighting the wild's glow. Winter deepened, the forest shedding frost, the center a hub of hope as volunteers swelled. Milo's legacy a whisper rippling beyond Montana. "He's out there. Cubs growing," David said one dusk, his rugged frame slowing, his silver hair whitening as he traced a claw print, his hazel eyes glinting with a quiet hope. Elena's steady hands flipped a camera, her voice thick as she watched Milo's spotted form leap. A hunter guarding his own, a bond tethered to their care. Years unfolded, winter yielding to spring's bloom. Milo's tracks a steady mark, his spotted coat now broad and fierce, his yellow eyes a predator's gleam at 8 years old. David roamed the ridge, his rugged frame bending, his cane steadying steps, his hazel eyes dimming as he set cameras. "He's thriving. Legacy's his," he murmured, voice thick as he sank by the stream, his trust tethered to a cub's hiss, now a hunter's roar in the wild's heart. Autumn returned, the cliffs shedding gold, the center's quiet deepening as David's steps faltered, his rugged frame still as he sat by the stream, his silver hair catching the sun, his hazel eyes closing in peace. "Good boy," he rasped, breath fading, his rugged hands steady on his cane. A trust tethered to a spark, now a whisper carried to the wild. Elena stood by his grave, her steady hands clutching Milo's release photo, her hazel eyes glinting with tears, a bond stitched in care, now a flame lighting her path. The forest stretched vast, Luna's pack a distant howl, Milo's hiss a memory in the snow. But his fight roared on, cubs thriving, elk steady, wolves weaving peace. A legacy kindled in shelter, now a balance etched in the wild's heart.